No parents came to visit, no name was called at pickup time. Jordan grew up learning something most children never have to learn this early, that nobody was coming to save the day. So Jordan decided to build one instead. There was no bedtime story, no goodnight kiss, just a room full of children who understood each other without needing words. In that silence, Jordan made a quiet promise. Someday, things would be different. One ordinary afternoon, Jordan found a single coin lying in the dirt. It wasn't much, but holding it felt like holding a tiny piece of freedom, proof that something could belong to no one else but them. Jordan learned early that value could be created, not just given. Sweeping a stall for bread wasn't charity, it was Jordan's very first business deal, made before they even knew the word for it. By 9 years old, Jordan had a shoe shine box and a plan. Every coin earned went into a battered tin hidden under a loose floorboard. It wasn't much money, but it was the beginning of a habit that would outlast the tin itself. One teacher noticed something in Jordan that others had missed: curiosity that refused to quit. She handed over an extra book after class and said simply, "Learning is the one thing nobody can ever take from you." Every night after lights out, Jordan read by candlelight, hidden under a thin blanket. Nobody assigned this homework. Nobody checked if it was done. Jordan simply understood, even that young, that knowledge was a door nobody could lock. At 16, Jordan aged out of the system with one suitcase and no safety net. No family to call, no sponsor waiting. Just a tin of savings, a stack of borrowed books, and a promise made years earlier that still hadn't been forgotten. The first real paycheck felt heavier than it should have for such a small number. Jordan worked harder than anyone on the floor, not because someone was watching, but because nobody else was going to build this life for them. It was small, plain, and barely furnished. But for the first time in Jordan's life, a door had a lock that only they controlled. That tiny room felt bigger than any mansion could have because it was finally, truly their own. With no one to teach proper budgeting, Jordan invented their own. Chalk on the wall became a spreadsheet. Rent, food, savings, nothing wasted. It wasn't elegant, but it worked because it was built from necessity, not theory. Walking into a bank alone, with no parent to co-sign, felt terrifying. But the teller simply smiled and helped. That old tin of coins finally became something official, a real account, with Jordan's own name printed on it. After a full shift, most people go home to rest. Jordan went to class instead. There was no scholarship waiting, no family cheering from the back row, only the quiet certainty that education was still the fastest way out. $1,000. It took over a year of small sacrifices to get there. Jordan stared at the number for a long moment, feeling something unfamiliar rise up. Not pride exactly, but proof. Proof that the plan was actually working. With no financial advisor to call, the library became Jordan's classroom. Book after book explained the same idea in different words. Money that isn't just saved, but put to work, grows in ways a paycheck alone never could. The first investment was small and terrifying. What if it disappeared? But Jordan remembered the tin under the floorboard, small amounts, added patiently, had built something before. This felt like the same idea, just in a new form. The warehouse closed without warning, and the paycheck Jordan depended on vanished overnight. It would have been easy to feel like the world was proving a point, that people like Jordan just weren't meant to get ahead. Jordan didn't have the luxury of giving up. There was no family fallback, no couch to crash on. So the resume got rewritten. New doors got knocked on. Setbacks, Jordan had learned long ago, were just part of the process. Instead of waiting for the next warehouse job, Jordan learned something new, a skill nobody could shut down overnight. Free tutorials became a classroom, and every finished lesson felt like another brick added to a foundation. The first freelance payment was small, but it felt enormous. Nobody handed Jordan this opportunity. It was built from a skill learned alone, at night, with nothing but stubbornness and a laptop bought secondhand. One client became 3, 3 became 10. Jordan learned that reputation, built one honest project at a time, was worth more than any single paycheck ever could be. Word began to spread on its own. Leaving the last steady paycheck behind was terrifying. There was no safety net waiting to catch a fall. But Jordan had learned to trust the plan, built brick by brick, and press send anyway. The freelance work grew into something bigger, a small office, a first hire. Jordan remembered sweeping a market stall for bread and almost laughed. The distance traveled suddenly felt impossible to measure. Not every quarter was easy. Some months the numbers went the wrong direction. But Jordan had survived worse than a slow season before, and calm, steady adjustment had always outperformed panic. $50,000. The number that once felt impossible now sat quietly on a screen. Jordan thought of the 10 under the floorboard and realized it had never really been about the coin. It had always been about the habit. Owning a home had once seemed like something that happened to other people. People with parents who helped, with family who co-signed. Jordan stood outside a small, plain house, holding the keys, and finally understood. It could happen to anyone who refused to quit. The one-person freelance hustle had grown into a real company with a real team. Jordan led every meeting the same way, with the same discipline, learned shining shoes on a street corner, just aimed at something much bigger now. Jordan started visiting a local group home, sitting with teenagers who reminded them of a younger self. There was no lecture, no pity, just an honest conversation from someone who had actually walked that exact road. $250,000 sat across several accounts, now savings, investments, the small business itself. Jordan had learned that real wealth was never one number. It was many small decisions, finally adding up into something solid. One afternoon, Jordan drove past the old gate without planning to stop, but stopped anyway. The building looked smaller now, worn by time. The child who once stood there with a worn bag had built an entire life since. Jordan funded new beds, new books, a small college fund for anyone who aged out next. It wasn't charity in Jordan's mind. It was simply passing along what one kind teacher had once given for free. $500,000 came with a dedicated advisor now, a private meeting room, real attention. Jordan still remembered walking into a bank alone as a teenager, terrified. The distance between those two moments was staggering. Jordan launched a scholarship for students leaving the foster system. Just like they once had no family, no safety net, only ambition. Every recipient reminded Jordan exactly why this all mattered in the first place. $750,000 brought new questions Jordan never expected to ask, not just how to grow this, but how to make sure it outlasted them. The plan was no longer only about survival. Jordan never had a family handed to them, so they built one instead, out of mentors, friends, and the people they later chose to help. The table was full now, in every sense of the word. $1 million. The banker said it plainly, almost casually. Jordan sat in silence for a long moment, not celebrating loudly, just quietly remembering a child with a tin box under a floorboard who had never once been told this was possible. The old tin box still existed, dented and empty now, sitting on a shelf in an office Jordan owned outright. It wasn't there for decoration. It was there as a reminder of exactly where every single dollar had started. Jordan started speaking at schools, telling students the truth instead of a polished version of it. No mansion metaphors, no shortcuts, just the same lesson learned as a child. Save what you can, learn constantly, and never wait for rescue. Wealth, Jordan had learned, was never really about the number. It was about never again feeling powerless the way a child at an orphanage gate once had. The $1 million mattered less than the freedom standing behind it. No parents came to that gate all those years ago. No sponsor ever called. But Jordan built a life anyway, one coin, one book, one honest decision at a time. Proof that where you start was never meant to decide where you finish.